Welcome, I'm Rob. You join me at TeamSport Sheffield for a slightly different style of video. I was looking through the TeamSport app and I came across a public session that was completely empty. You could book all 20 spaces. So, with very little time left before the bookings were to close, I messaged Dan and suggested we go down. When I arrived, it was confirmed. We had the track to ourselves and we could book an extra session. I was released first from the pits, and with just the two of us on track, we're in the unusual position of using the upstairs pits. But I decided to let Dan get ahead before we even finished our outlap. Dan is generally a second or so slower than me, so the idea was I was going to sit behind and see if I could offer any suggestions as to where I am obviously faster than he is. Just the whole track, really. So with Dan now ahead, we've jumped to the start of the first timed lap. In this video we're going to have a few time jumps, so it won't be the same as my others. It's a new format that I'm going to try just for this visit, as I didn't think 3 videos of next to nothing happening on track would be all that great to watch. Right now we've got Dan right in front of us, as I wanted to leave a couple of kart lengths and use that as a guide to where I close up or not. As you can see though, I close up quite a bit through the corners, and Dan is currently sliding around quite a lot. Do keep a very close eye on his rear left wheel, particularly on the tighter left hand corners. We'll come back to this in a moment. Kart 24, Dan's kart, doesn't look particularly happy on the track. It doesn't look like Dan's normal driving style, so I don't think it's him doing anything weird. He's not one to slide the kart around all that much, so let's see if he's just taking a few laps to warm up. It definitely seems to want to slide whenever Dan turns into a corner, so I don't think it's him. A 1 minute 1 second lap, even for Dan, that's not normal, especially on an empty track. The kart seems fast enough on the straights, but something just isn't right going through the corners. If you've been watching as I suggested to, you might have noticed that Dan's rear left wheel is lifting almost immediately as he turns the wheel. We'll find out why shortly, but for now, I've got bored of sitting behind him and I'll pass him coming up the ramp. Or maybe not, he's kept his nose in and stayed in front of me. I've sat behind, and as we've come into the lower pit section, I've taken the huge gap that he's left and stuck it up the inside. 3.5 laps. That's how long I could sit behind Dan going this slow. Now, part of the reason that I'd booked this session was I was having a bad time with my back. I'm sure you've heard me mention before that I don't have the best back in the world, and I do see a chiropractor quite regularly. I'd actually taken some time off work a few days before this visit, as it had actually got that bad that I could not even sit in a chair. So I was quite happy to be doing slightly slower times, as I was in a bit of pain throughout the sessions. Having cleared Dan and set a 1 minute lap, let's just jump ahead in this session, where I found my flow, my back isn't too bad, and I set my quickest lap of the session. Lap 11. So having now done some mid and low 59-second laps, it was the end of the session. I wasn't particularly impressed with my performance, but with me still being in pain throughout, it's not totally awful. We just had a 15-minute wait whilst a group of 6 had their session, then it was time to jump back in the karts for the second time. We've swapped karts this time around. I'm now in kart 24, and this is how long it takes me to work out something is wrong. Driving down the ramp at a very low speed, I can feel it is pulling heavily to the right. Remember that rear left wheel lifting? Yep, the front right is low. I ended up taking a very slow outlap, watching that tyre just rolling over as it went round. It's not completely flat, but it looks very, very low. Dan managed to drive this thing, but I can't put up with this for a whole lap. Dan is catching up now, so I've raised my hand to warn him that I'm going slow. Yep, this isn't going to work for me. Let's pop into the pits and change this kart.
Front right slow, yeah.
So now I jump into kart 15. The pedals are already where I like them, but I need to slide the seat to the right spot for me. The 4 tyres on this car are inflated though, so that's a good start, I guess. At the top of the ramp, I've taken a mental note of where Dan is on the track. Let's take a few laps and see how much I can close up. To be honest, whilst the tyres may be inflated, this kart does feel slow. Let's see how I'm doing at the top of the ramp this time around compared to Dan. We appear to be doing very similar lap times then, as he is roughly in the same position as he was last time. Yeah, this kart does not feel all that great at all. I've only done a mid 59-second lap. After a few laps of not really gaining on Dan, I decided to back off and let him catch up. So this is a very, very slow lap, to the point that I get bored and start singing elevator music as well. Without the ability to set quick laps and no one else around me, I felt this was my best option. If Dan gets in front, I can then at least see just how slow this kart is, or have some fun and take him out or something. A 1 minute 17 lap. A couple of these and Dan will catch up in no time. The marshals were having none of this though, encouraging me to speed up. That board, in case you missed it, said go, go, go. I gave in. I did what the marshals asked. I did 2 laps at 1 minute 5 seconds, slightly quicker, before picking up the pace slightly when I saw that Dan was now starting to catch. I left the door open through the lower pits and I've let him on through. We're going to jump ahead again now. Lap 12 was the fastest of the session for both of us, so let's see how that went. We were fairly even there, but for the first time ever, Dan actually set a quicker lap time than me at any track that we've both been to. He was 2/10 quicker with a 59.498. My kart sucked. So that brings us now to the end of the second session. We both bought an extra session, which again was just the two of us on track. And this time we're both in karts that neither of us have driven. Guess what? This kart doesn't feel right either. It's not the front right, but the left of the kart that feels wrong this time around. I decided to give it a lap. It didn't feel awful, and it certainly wasn't as bad as previous karts, but I figured that maybe if I can get some heat into the tyres, it might just bump the pressures a little bit and feel a bit better. With the hard compounds that are run on rental kart tyres, heat really doesn't make all that much difference to the pressures, but it was worth a shot, I figured. I'm watching the front left tyre closely, particularly through right hand corners, and I'm not seeing it roll as much as the other karts did. Maybe it's not the tyre after all. I've definitely decided at this point that I'm going to switch out this car. I'm now unsure if it's the front left tyre or something else entirely, but either way I need to limp this one back to the pits too. In the pits, a poke of the tyre confirms my suspicions, so I stick with the simple line and just say,
"Front left feels funny."
I'll leave them to take a look and work it out. With less than half a lap in this car, I'm already feeling good about it. I won't be happy if I can't get a simple 58-second lap on an empty track. With this kart feeling pretty good, we'll skip forward several laps again. I set several low 59-second laps and just one that broke into the 58s. And now I'm starting to catch Dan again to recover my place on track. It looks like Dan has a slow kart this time. I've caught him throughout the lap and just breezed past him coming up the ramp. There is far too much inconsistency between the karts tonight. Staff often receive complaints from members about this, but this is the first time that I've personally been so badly affected by it. Yes, it's just a public practice session and nothing truly competitive, but for me to need 5 karts, 6 karts if I swap that second kart in session 2 as well, to be honest, in 3 sessions, that's not great news at all. This lap playing now was my fastest of the session and of the evening. Whilst it is a little off my preferred pace of a low or mid 58-second lap, it's better than being in the 59s, and with the way my back was at the time, it's good enough. So that then brings us to the end of the 3rd session. It's not a great visit, let's be honest, but it's still fun to have 45 minutes of clear track knowing that unless something went very badly wrong for us, there would be no interruptions with crashes with red flags. I'm always grateful for any track time I can get though, so I'm not going to complain any more than this. A quiet evening also meant being able to chat to the staff as well, so that elevated our moods anyway, and we were happy enough.
Back left. Close. I had the right side, yeah, it's a good start.
The next set of videos to come out will be a Grid 3-for-2 evening in preparation for the final round of Grid Series. As always, thank you so much for joining me on my go-karting adventures. We're getting very, very close to that 500 subscriber mark, and I'm getting very excited about that. I never imagined that would even happen. I started this channel purely just because. I was starting to visit TeamSport regularly and was recording everything anyway for my own reviewing, and I enjoy editing videos and learning new software, so I decided to stick it all on that YouTube and all. Never did I expect to have recognition when I visit the track, and certainly not to be screamed at by a 14-year-old girl in reception. She knows who she is. Because of all of you wonderful people who follow my journey and watch my content regularly, I'm growing in not only my confidence on the track, but off it too. I'm naturally a shy person, but it's great to meet you all and chat about a topic that I can talk about endlessly. Talking to camera has certainly been helping too. If you haven't subscribed yet, and especially if I've still not hit those 500 subs, please do give that button a little click for me. Whilst I am restricted on time, I'd love to be able to visit more and more TeamSport venues and to go even further and visit even more tracks too. And of course, I'd love for you all to join me on that journey. Until the 3-for-2 next time around, cheers.